The furious brown water slammed against the massive body of the silverback gorilla as he fought against the deadly current. On his back, clinging with tiny claws that could barely hold on, a lion cub trembled, soaked and exhausted. Every stroke the gorilla made was a battle against a river determined to drag them both into oblivion. Broken branches struck them, white foam covered them, and from the muddy shore a photographer watched, paralyzed, unable to comprehend what his eyes were witnessing. A wild gorilla risking his life to save the cub of his supposed natural enemy. No one could have predicted this scene. Gorillas don't swim for pleasure, and they certainly don't rescue lion cubs. And yet, there he was, his powerful arms cutting through the water with fierce determination, his dark, intelligent eyes fixed on the distant shore where safety waited. The tiny lion, only a few months old, pressed his wet face into the gorilla's drenched fur, trusting completely in this impossible savior. The roar of the river drowned out all other sound, but in that moment of pure courage and compassion, the silence between two species spoke louder than anything else. On the opposite bank, 5 silhouettes emerged from the tall grass. 4 lionesses and a massive male with a dark mane stood watching. Their golden eyes followed every movement of the gorilla, every wave that threatened to pull him under. They did not growl, they did not advance. They simply waited, witnesses to an act of bravery that challenged everything humans believed about the animal. Kingdom. What would happen when the gorilla reached the shore would change the photographer's life forever if dinainanin. This story has already touched your heart. Give us a like and subscribe for more incredible stories from nature that restore our faith in compassion. And please, leave us a comment telling us which country you're watching from. We love knowing how these stories of courage bring people together across the world. Now, let me tell you how all this began. The river had changed its personality in just a few days. What was during the dry season just a lazy stream winding through the African valley had now turned into a roaring beast of brown water and relentless fury. 3 days of torrential rain had swollen its edges beyond recognition. Century-old trees uprooted floated through the violent current like matchsticks. Chunks of red earth collapsed from the eroded banks into the hungry water that seemed determined to devour the entire world. The photographer had arrived. In this remote region of Africa, searching for the beauty that follows storms. Those magical moments when the sun breaks through clouds and bathes the savannah in golden light, when the animals emerge like breathing mist. He had been camping by the river for 3 days, waiting patiently for that perfect moment that would justify weeks of planning and thousands of kilometers of travel from home. His professional equipment rested in waterproof bags beneath a makeshift tarp. He had captured some decent shots of lightning-splitting distant horizons, clouds stacked like dark towers against the sky, but nothing extraordinary. This morning, on the 4th day after the rains began, he stepped out of his tent with his camera around his neck, hopeful that the clouds would finally break. The air was thick with humidity and the scent of wet earth and crushed vegetation. The constant roar of the flooded river had been the soundtrack to his sleepless nights. As he approached the riverbank, his boots sank 15 centimeters into the mud with every step. That's when he saw it. At first, he thought it was driftwood, maybe the body of a dead animal carried by the current. He lifted his camera, adjusted the telephoto lens, and focused. His blood froze. It wasn't wood, it was alive. A tiny lion cub clung desperately to a slick black rock rising from the raging river. The rock was barely larger than a basketball, utterly unsuitable as refuge. Waves crashed over it again and again, drenching the cub in bursts of white foam. Through his lens, the photographer saw everything. The trembling body, the soaked fur plastered to it, the tiny claws slipping on the smooth stone, the silent cry of terror, the cloudy blue eyes wide with panic. The cub couldn't survive much longer. Instinct overcame professionalism. This was not a moment to document. It was a moment to act, but the brutal truth was immediate. He could do nothing. The current would kill him before he could get halfway to the rock. No rope, no boat, no possible way. He was forced to stand there and witness a young life fading. Then he heard it, a heavy, crashing movement behind him. He turned, expecting the cub's mother. But what emerged instead was a massive silverback gorilla. The gorilla didn't spare him a glance. His eyes went straight to the river, to the cub, and then he stepped into the water. The photographer watched, breathless as the gorilla fought the river itself, using strength alone to advance, angled, strategic, powerful. A huge log slammed into him. Any human would have been knocked unconscious. He simply shook his head and kept going. He reached the rock just as the cub lost its grip and fell. One gigantic hand slapped the stone for anchor. The other plunged under the foam and emerged holding the lion cub. He pressed it to his chest, shielding it from the waves. Then he began the harder journey back, one arm swimming, the other wrapped around life. When the gorilla reached the shore, he lowered the cub gently into the mud. Then the lion pride emerged. The photographer braced for violence, but instead, something impossible happened. The great male lion sat, then bowed his head. The lionesses followed. 5 deadly lions bowing to a gorilla. Not submission. Not fear. Respect. Gratitude. The gorilla simply breathed quietly, accepting the moment with calm dignity. Then, when the mother lion reclaimed her cub, and the pride gathered to escort it home, the gorilla turned and walked back into the jungle. Before disappearing, he looked back at the photographer, and in those eyes, the man saw it, a soul aware of what it had done. The lions left. The jungle closed. The river roared on. The photographer collapsed in the mud, overwhelmed, not by danger, but by truth. Greatness is not strength alone. It is the courage to risk everything for someone who is not your own. If this story touched your heart, share it. Let someone remember today that compassion has no species, no borders, no limits.